So the Trump administration is ordering the freeze of $2.2 billion in federal funding for Harvard. This after the Ivy League school said it would not comply with the president's request for policy changes over anti-Semitism. Harvard alum and New York Congresswoman Lee Stefanik is praising the move from the White House.
President Trump correctly made the correct decision to defund these institutions. If you look at what they required for Harvard, it was protection of Jewish students. It is making sure that we are getting rid of DEI, which by definition is anti-Semitic. And instead, Harvard is acting more entitled than ever. U.S. taxpayer dollars should never be propping up anti-Semitism.
So Shabbos Kastenbaum graduated from Harvard about a year ago. And good morning to you, Shabbos. Thanks for coming back here on America's Newsroom. I want to show you the demands. They're very similar to Columbia from a couple months back. They include the governance and leadership reforms, discontinue DEI, as you just heard from the Congresswoman, implement a mask ban, which has been in big demand for some of these Ivy League schools. Harvard responded the following way. The university will not surrender its independence or relinquish its constitutional rights. Neither Harvard nor any other private university can allow itself to be taken over by the federal government. Where does this stand now, Shabbos, as a recent grad?
Well, first of all, Harvard has no rights under the Constitution to federal funds. Harvard students, on the other hand, have a right under the Constitution not to be discriminated against. And Harvard is insisting on the first point. They're not insisting on the second point. The entire showdown boils down to Harvard insisting on violating the civil rights of Jewish students and the Trump administration refusing to allow Americans to fund violations of those civil rights. And I'll say this, the federal government historically has withheld funds to racist schools that refuse to integrate. They withheld funds from sexist schools that refused to combat sexual assault. So we have to stop pretending that this is an unprecedented attack on higher education and recognize that these campuses, including Harvard, have egregiously violated the civil rights of Jewish students.
Okay, so here's what the governor of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts is saying. We all agree that anti-Semitism has no place in America and that it should be fought in the workplace, classrooms, and everywhere. Complying with the Trump administration's dangerous demands would have made us all less safe and less free. The school is saying we've made changes. The school is saying that we're a very different place today from where we were a year ago. You think that's the case?
It's absurd. And by the way, if Harvard doesn't want the federal government to have a say in their education, then fine, they can choose at literally any point to stop taking $9 billion in American taxpayer money. I mean, Harvard is not brave or principled for refusing to comply. They're elites who've been paying less in taxes than firemen and school teachers. They expect you to keep subsidizing their classes that have consistently been proven to teach kids to hate America, to hate American Jews, and to discriminate against whites, against Asians, and other minority groups. And again, at its core, we're not asking as Jewish students for special treatment under the law. We're asking for equal treatment under the law. And if the governor of Massachusetts is President Alan Garber of Harvard, if they're so concerned about these attacks, there's literally an easy out. They can simply enforce law already on the books. They can fulfill their mandates under federal law, but they refuse to do it. And why should the American taxpayer be funding an institution that has more money, $54 billion, than most countries' GDP? Yeah. I mean, this is a silly argument.
I understand the point you're making. I thought it was $55 billion. Maybe it's gone down a bit. I don't know. From 60 Minutes in November, watch here.
We came across some data that less than 3% of the Harvard faculty identifies as conservative, more than 75% identifies as liberal. Wildly out of proportion with the American public.
There's a huge disconnect now between the academic elite and the average American voter.
So, I mean, that was interesting. The president saying maybe Harvard loses its tax-exempt status. Is that where this goes, or is the Supreme Court the ultimate decider on this money?
Well, I certainly hope so. I mean, this is why I campaigned and voted for President Trump. President Trump nor I really minced words. We were very clear with Harvard University and other elite universities that have discriminated against Jewish American students that if they don't change their ways, there will be consequences. Because as I said in the beginning, the federal funds allotted to Harvard, Columbia, Penn, Yale, they're not enshrined in the Constitution. It is a privilege. It's not a right. And if you have a university like Harvard where 97% of the faculty identify as liberal, where conservative voices are consistently silenced, where you have Jewish Americans who are afraid to go to their classes, then that is a major, major problem. And the expenditure of federal dollars is an expression of our values. And what President Trump is doing is saying our values do not discriminate. Our values mean that people can have an education irrespective of their religious or political identity. And it's about time that Harvard recognizes those values and fall in line under federal law. And as I said, if they don't want to do it, then fine. Don't take $9 billion in hard-earned American taxpayer money.
Understood. The fight has been joined. We'll see where it goes. Chabos, thank you for your time. Recent grad of Harvard, for joining us today. Thank you. Dana.